I would say to reach down and find enough curiosity and enough passion and enthusiasm to help someone as much as you would want to be helped if you have recovery.
It's time for the SHAIR Recovery Podcast, where we bring you amazing life-changing success stories from addicts and alcoholics all over the world who share their inspiring journey in recovery. And now, here's your host,
On today's episode of the SHAIR Podcast, Amber Leone Murphy, the founder of Can't Keep a Sober Girl Down and the author of Crushing Codependency, shares with us her incredible battle with alcoholism. Amber, now 9 years sober, started drinking at 8 years old, sneaking sips of beer from leftover beer cans at family parties. At age 13, her grandmother dies and the heavy drinking begins. Throughout high school, Amber's parents move around a lot, and with every new high school come a new set of drinking buddies she would gravitate towards. For over 10 years, Amber's alcoholism would gradually get worse and worse. Drinking on the job, public intoxication, arrested for a DUI, and sleeping in her car, Amber finally hits rock bottom when she moves to New York and ends up in an alcoholic blackout throughout all of 9/11. When she comes out of the fog, the guilt and shame lead her to recovery. Today, Amber is a public speaker, an author, an artist, and an entrepreneur. It's an amazing journey of recovery. Join us now. And after this interview, if you enjoyed listening to the SHAIR Podcast, please leave us a rating and review on iTunes or Stitcher Radio. This will ensure we get ranked well on these networks, and that means more people will easily find the SHAIR Podcast. This is the best way to show your support and help us grow. Now back to the show. Hello, Amber.
Hi, this is Omar.
This is Omar.
Hello, you have a California number.
Well, ironically enough, I'm from California.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Born and raised in Pasadena. I guess you can say L.A.
Oh, okay. But I used to live in Burbank years and years ago, so I would drive from L.A. to Burbank when I worked down there, from Washington State to L.A.
You would drive all the way down to Burbank from Washington?
Yeah, I was crazy.
What were you doing? Like transporting kilos of weed or something?
No, I was a literary agent.
Okay.
So, yeah.
This is prior?
So, yeah, this is when I was married and my ex-husband worked in the Navy on a naval base in Washington State on Whidbey Island in Washington. So I worked out of an agency in Hollywood. And so I would drive down until we actually moved there. I would make many trips up and down, and yeah, it's pretty wild.
All right, I gotcha.
And you're in Costa Rica.
I'm in Costa Rica. I've been here for 16 years.
I'm so envious.
Everybody says that.
In a good way.
No, of course. You know, our lives today are envious in a good way. All right, I think you're warmed up. Are you ready to get started?
I am.
Awesome. All right, so let's get cracking over here. So, one of the things that I noticed about the Facebook page is that you said, the only thing I enjoy more than watching people's faces shine as they grow and change in recovery is hearing their stories. And the SHAIR Podcast is all about inspiring recovery stories. So when you wrote that, at what point in your recovery did you write that?
It was about 7.5 years in.
Okay, all right. This is when. Yeah. So when you first launched the Can't Keep a Sober Girl Down, right?
Yep. I wanted people to know my intention of the website. It wasn't for any kind of purpose of fame. It wasn't for any other reason than to just share.
So I'm assuming when did you launch? Because you've got two. You've got Can't Keep a Sober Girl Down and Can't Keep a Codependent Girl Down, right?
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
And when did you start these?
I started in March of 2014, I believe.
Okay. And how much clean time do you have, and what's your anniversary date?
I have 9 years sober time, and clean and sober since November 7th of 2005.
Excellent.
By the grace of God.
And so just tell us a little bit about Amber Leone here. Give us a little bit of, tell us a little bit about your websites and why you're doing this and what you're passionate about.
Okay. Well, I'm Minnesota born and raised. I believe in family and love and prospering with love and family. That's just like, I guess, who I am. I believe that there is a loving God, which I choose to call my higher power God, and I ask to be a conduit of His love. So I believe I'm that as well on a daily basis. That's what I ask for, because there's no way that I can go out into the world and take from it if I ask my higher power, God, to be a conduit of love. So I guess that's just how I view myself. So with can't keep a sober girl down, actually derived from a place of great pain. Not very surprising to most. I think a lot of great things come from pain. But I was in a place where I didn't feel seen, heard, or understood in my life by some of the closest people. I just felt frustrated over it. I felt like I was making the wrong choices. I was really in my head, the committee in my head was just rampant at that time in my life, in that spring of 2014, and I was frustrated. I was selfish. I wasn't getting what I wanted when I wanted it, and I was angry because I wasn't getting what I wanted when I wanted it.
Right.
And I remember I continuously called my sponsor in recovery, and I was like, I feel like I'm dying here. I don't know what to do. And she was like, sounds like you need some more sponsees. You need to start working with some addicts and alcoholics. And I was really frustrated with her. I was just like, come on, there's got to be a different way to feel better. And she would always give me the same answer. And so, I would go out and because I'd never sponsored, I never felt like I had anything to offer, honestly.
Hold on. Hold on.
What?
Let me get this straight. So you were in 7 years. 7 years into sobriety, and you didn't feel like you had something to give back?
Nope.
Okay, continue.
Nope. Nope, I didn't. I had just started sponsoring in my 7th year of sobriety, and I was very nervous about it because I realized in my 6th year that I knew nothing. I had a spiritual awakening in my 6th year of sobriety. And I realized that I was so heady for years about life, and I thought I knew everything. And then at 6 years, I realized I hardly knew anything. And I was extremely humbled by that experience. But I would constantly take my will back, if that makes sense. So it was just it was a journey of constantly taking my will back, honestly, and really struggling to get out of myself to help another person. So for my sponsor to say that that's the solution, that that's the answer, if I want to feel better, go make somebody else feel better. If I want to be happy, help somebody else be happy. If I want results in my life, help someone else have results in theirs. I just, it's opposite world, and I didn't get it.
I love where this is going. I love it.
So when I started to reach out to women, it was before the Can't Keep a Sober Girl Down started, but it was just before then. I started to really reach out to some women, and I could see their faces change, like I talk about on the page on my website. I could literally see the transformation happening, and I cared. And it wasn't the first time I cared, but I had forgotten. And I was so compelled, I couldn't stop helping other women. And at the time I remember in my first it was within the first couple of months that I started the Can't Keep a Sober Girl Down blog. It was just a blog. I hadn't even put it on Facebook for another 9 months or something like that. But I was swimming in my pool, and I was listening to Alicia Keys. This girl is on fire. You know that song, This Girl is on Fire. And I was like, yeah. And then I was like, how many other women feel like this? And I really just started to tap into, we're all connected. There's no separation unless I create that.
Right.
And it's not just women that had reached out, it was men too. And, I've never been a woman against man or feminist or anything like that. I just was sharing my own experience, strength, and hope as a girl, as a woman, so that's why I call it Can't Keep a Sober Girl Down. And, I guess it just took off from there. And then it's play, it's art play, and I love creativity. And one of my first sponsors, she said that God works through creativity. And I didn't get that. I didn't understand what that meant until later on when I started to see my higher power as God as the ultimate creator. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I want to tap into that. And so for me, words, connection, and art, creativity and meditation, all is it's such a beautiful part of everyday living that I want to live like that on a daily basis, and I want to help as many people as I can in this process.
I love it. I love it. So now that we have an idea of where Can't Keep a Sober Girl Down came from, and we've got a really good idea of who Amber is today, it's time to go back into the past, a little Amber. Are you ready?
Okay. I am.
All right. So now, how old were you the first time you drank or used drugs? And more importantly, how did they make you feel?
Do cinnamon sticks count? Just kidding.
They might. What kind of a mood or Malta? What did it do to you?
It's terrible. I just remembered when I was a kid, searching for something to smoke in the cupboard. But no, really, my first sip of beer, I was 8 years old.
Oh, wow.
And I remember it was in a pink plastic cup. It's just a little bit of beer. And it was given to me from a family loved one. And I wanted more. And she had said no. Excuse me. And I was angry that I couldn't have more because the feeling, the rush of a high almost came over me. And my ears got hot. My chest was hot. I was warm, and I felt a bit more courageous than my introverted shy self. And that was my first sip of alcohol.
Wow, you're really connected. I love it. 8 years old, I don't really even remember what I was doing at 8 years old, but to be able to connect with that, it really helps you rewind that tape, whenever you need to access that information. So you're more than warmed up, so I'm going to turn this show over to you, Amber. It's time for you to share your story, the battle against drugs and alcohol, the wreckage it caused in your life, when you hit rock bottom, and finally your journey into recovery up until today. So Amber, take it away.
Okay, so from that moment of taking the sip from the pink plastic cup when I was 8 years old, I remember how good it felt, and I remember that into the year of being 13 years old when my grandmother had passed away, and I was at a family member's house, and I was actually visiting, because at the time my family lived in Montana, but we're from Minnesota, and I was visiting in Minnesota because my grandmother had passed away. And I looked up at the top of the fridge, and there was a big bottle of vodka. And I just intuitively knew, and maybe I had seen it several times prior, what to do with that. And so I found some orange juice and poured the vodka into the glass with the orange juice and kept refilling and talking to my mother on the phone, just belligerently drunk. And that was my first blackout experience. I don't remember what I said. I just remember crying and blubbering and not making much sense, and filling the vodka bottle with water because I didn't want to get into trouble. I don't know how many times I did that. Hopefully she never breathes it, but whatever. So I don't remember the next morning. I don't remember how that was, or I didn't have any consequences from it. I guess my first consequence was with marijuana when I was 14 the following year. I had been smoking quite a bit of pot, as much as I could get my hands on. I remember, first of all, let me rewind a little bit. When my grandmother passed away, I wrote in my diary, and I still have that diary to this day, and it said, I want some marijuana, weed, or Mary Jane, or liquor, beer, something like that. And I mean, I was very descriptive of all these different, like a 13, 14-year-old kid. I was on a mission. I was calling it all its names.
Wow.
I just knew that I didn't want, nor did I know how to deal with the way I felt. When my grandmother passed away, we were very, very, very close. Right. And started smoking pot when I was 14, and very quickly I handed it to a friend in Stevensville, Montana. I lived in Stevensville, Montana at the time, a very small town, like 2,000, maybe a little bit more people in the Bitterroot Valley there, beautiful valley, and handed it to a friend and on school property. And I got turned into the police from my friend's mother, and I'm so grateful for that now. But at the time, I was really angry. I was very upset that she turned me in. So I literally remember walking. Okay, my routine was I smoke pot during the week, and I party with booze on the weekend. That was my routine by the time I was 14. And that morning that I got into trouble, I actually had woken up, and I didn't smoke pot before school, which was usually my regular routine, but for some reason I was probably running late and didn't have enough time. So I get to school, and I'm in wood shop or something like that class, and woodworking or something, and shop class, and the drug counselor comes in, and I'm like, oh no. So I reach for my pocket. I'm looking for my pipe. I'm looking for my pot. I can't find it. I can't find my lighter even. And I'm like, oh my goodness, did I leave it in my freaking locker? Because they call in the dogs,
Uh-huh.
In Stevensville, Montana, because there's a lot of drug busts even in small towns like that in the 90s. So I'm paranoid already, and I'm not even high. And the drug counselor comes up straight up to me and says, Amber, how you doing today? And he's looking at my eyes. I say, I'm good. And he's like, why don't you come to the principal's office with me? We have something to discuss. And I'm like, oh, shit. Okay. So I get to the principal's office, and I, little freshman, and get to the principal's office, and here is the town sheriff sitting in the principal's chair. His name, I won't tell you, but
we'll keep anonymity here for the sheriff.
Keep anonymity, yes. And the principal is standing, and the town sheriff is in the chair, and he's like, Amber, do you know why you've been called in here today? And I said, no. And he was like, Amber, this is about marijuana. And I was like, oh no. And I instantly started crying. I started just bawling, just feeling, I was so scared. I was trembling. And I really didn't want them to call my parents. Really didn't, but they had to. And my mom comes down there, and I'll never forget it. I'll never forget her face. And she looked at me and she said, "You're nothing, pothead." and I was like, "No." Years later, she told me, "That was for show. That was for show. Amber, I knew you were going to experiment. I was kind of disappointed in you, but it wasn't that big of a deal. They were making a huge deal out of it." She was like, "But I talked to you about it after." And so it was, but I never wanted to smoke pot after that. And so I went back to my original drug of choice, alcohol, for feeling like I fit in. Now, all the time that I had spent smoking pot in my freshman year, I had started hanging out with stoners. I was part of the stoners clubs and groups and parties. And now my friends are gone. So I got to start doing something bad because no one's hanging around me. They're calling me goody two-shoes, and I'm really consumed. I'm just totally and completely aware of how people are not paying attention to me or seeing me or talking to me. And I am nervous in my own skin. So alcohol alleviated that for me because I didn't know how to be courageous and I didn't know how to love myself.
Right.
So turned to the party lifestyle and in alcohol and kegger parties and hang out with football players and always feeling like a nerd, feeling like I wasn't part of subjecting myself to gross, inhumane kind of behavior when it came to, guys and any kind of relationship. I think my whole diary was about, I love this person today, or I hate this person. How could he do that? And just obsessed with the boys. Absolute obsession with trying to be loved. And I was loved by my parents, absolutely. But for some reason, that wasn't good enough. And I wanted that affection from my peers. So I moved back to Minnesota from Montana my sophomore year of high school. My parents had relocated to Grand Junction, Colorado, and given me the option to come and live with my grandpa and finish high school in Minnesota in the northern suburbs of the Twin Cities with my cousins who I grew up with, or go out to Colorado with people that I didn't know. Well, of course, that was an easy option for me, so I chose my grandfather, who I love dearly. And but I was really excited also that he went to bed at 6 p.m. so I could do whatever I wanted, however I wanted, whenever I wanted. Got into the wrong crowds and the right crowd. I always had my good friends, that didn't drink or do drugs for cover, I think.
Uh-huh.
And then I had my so-called fun friends, the people that partied with me. And I got a job as a DJ at a roller rink, and I was like, yes, I'm on top of the world. I'm a DJ at a roller rink in Grand Junction, Colorado. Now I'm going to be heard. And I was really excited because I was finally feeling like people were excited to see me and to be around me and to get to know me. And I started to meet a lot of older people and partying it up. And, there was countless nights where, I guess one in particular was I went out with a bunch of guys that were in their 20s that I met at the roller rink and had said, I'm only going to have 2 beers, 2 Coronas.
Of course.
And then had so much more than that. And my mom worked nights and my dad was usually home on the weekends, and he was working throughout the week. And so my mom's working nights, and she is gone, so I can go do whatever until about 2 a.m. I have to get my butt home. So one night she decides to come home a little early, and I come home, and I'm just not wasted completely because I can still comprehend that my mother has been home, and she is looking for me, and she is not home. Where can my mom be?
That is the worst feeling, man, especially when you got a good buzz going. Oh, buzzkill.
Yes. So I instantly call my stepdad and say, Dad, she's gone crazy. I don't know why she's looking for me. I'm home. And I make up this huge, this terrible story. It did not make any sense whatsoever. I just thought it did because the first thing to go when drinking is judgment. So my mom comes in the door and she's like, "You're drunk." My mom's sober. She's been sober for a long time.
But what do you mean by sober? Sober meaning that she quit drinking, or sober she just doesn't drink?
Yeah, sober as in she quit drinking.
Ah, so she knows all the tricks.
Yep. Yep. So, yep. And she took one look at me and she was like, "Liar, I know that you're drunk." I'm like, "No, I'm not." She said, "Amber, yes, you are. Do I need to call the police and do a sobriety test?" And I was like, "Yeah, call them." And she did. So the Colorado police show up, and the first thing he said is, "Have you been drinking tonight, ma'am?" And I said, "Yes." And then I'm instantly trying to manipulate the cop into not giving me a ticket. That didn't work, and I ended up having to do community service and pay a fee, and but I remember being grateful that my mom did that. I don't remember being angry with her. I remember being grateful because I knew that it was that she loved me, and I was just being ornery and a manipulative liar, and I knew I had done wrong.
Right.
And but I did use it as fuel with my friends. Like, can you believe it? Can you believe my mom did that? And not as, can you believe that I drank and told my mother I wasn't drinking and told her to call the police? Blaming. So when I was a senior in high school, we moved to Dallas, Texas, and by this time I'm just ticked. I don't want to leave again. My dad has a position in a company where he has to go to different areas of the country, and I completely understand. But this is really putting a dent in my social life. So, I'm a senior in high school. We have to move to Dallas, Texas, and I was just so fearful, just so ridden with fear about not being able to fit in or not making friends and having to reinvent myself. I hated that. I wanted to just stay put. Right. And which is kind of understandable too. And we moved there, and I started hanging out with my friend who ended up turning into my boyfriend, and we went to Texarkana, and we visited his grandma's house in Texarkana, Texas. And I remember that there was a pool party, and this was in the fall of 99. And there's a pool party going on, and no one's paying attention to me. And I'm angry, and I'm drunk, and I'm selfish, and I'm self-centered, and I'm egocentric, like one of my favorite books says I am. And all of a sudden, I have this like grand plan to trip and fall on the concrete, ground by the swimming pool so that people will feel sorry for me. And I just do it instantly. There's like, it's just a moment-to-moment thought. Yes, that's a great idea. Bam, boom. And people were like, "Oh my God, Amber, are you okay? Oh my God." And everyone's hovering around me, and I'm just loving it. I just remember loving it. Just being wasted and loving this. It just tricked all these people into thinking that I'm actually hurt. I'm not really actually hurt, but that was really stupid. And I remember my boyfriend after saying, "I saw you go down. Did you do that on purpose?"
Oh, busted.
And I was like, "How dare you? How dare you accuse me of something like that? I tripped. I mean, I was just neurotic. There was no, there was so much manipulation. I couldn't even, I was believing my own lie.
Right.
And, it was not even just about the alcoholism. It was so much selfishness and gross behavior. And then I moved back home to Minnesota after my senior year of high school. I graduated. And I decided I want to be an actress. So I decided that I was going to save up to go to acting school in either New York or LA. And I moved back home to Minnesota, and I got a waitressing job at a bar because that's where I was going to make a whole lot of money. And I did. I would stay after hours at the bar, and I was drinking probably 4, maybe 5 nights. I don't even know. As much as I possibly could. If you said liquor, I was in that corner. So, and if I could drink on the drop, I would have. And I'm 19, and I'm on a mission to make some really fast cash, and my whole life consisted. My idea of fun was waking up, going to work, making lots of money, drinking for as free as possible, so I could get as drunk as possible, only to pass out, wake up, and do it all over again. Mm-hmm. And that was my life when I was 19. And the repercussions of that was, at one point, I got pulled over by a cop and got a DUI. And I even with the cop, I was trying to manipulate him. He said, "Have you been drinking tonight?" And I said, "No." He said, "Really? What kind of new alcohol perfume are you wearing?" And I'm like, "That is so sorry, officer. I almost died at this party. This guy was trying to get into my car." Nothing made sense because drunk I don't make sense. And I don't think very many people do when they're drunk.
No.
The first thing to go is judgment. So, and I was drunk a lot. So, but the cop was really quite nice, and he didn't handcuff me, and I got in the back of the car, and then they were overfilled they couldn't hold me, so I had to go home. I was able to leave with a friend, and then I have my sentencing, and I'm 19, and I need to work so I can go to school for acting, and they tell me I can't drive. And I said, "Watch me." Well, I didn't really say that to the judge. I just said, "Okay." But then I realized, how was I going to get to work? Mm-hmm. How is I going to get around? I'm just going to drive down to Georgia where I have some friends, and I'm going to wait in their line, and I'm going to get a driver's license there because hopefully their computer system isn't connected. And I'm going to get a job there as a waitress, and everything will be fine. And that's exactly what I did.
Oh, my God. Really?
Yeah. In Savannah, Georgia.
Love it.
I had a couple of friends out at Fort Stewart, and so it wasn't too far away. It was like a 45-minute drive or something. And I was like, I could live by the beach. But I was a beach bum. That's what I ended up being for 6 months that I lived there. I did absolutely nothing except for make money, spend all the money almost that I made, and drink. And I remember waking up on the beach on Tybee Island, and the sun was blazing. You wake up and you're just hungover, and you feel like you got your face hidden by a truck.
Oh, yeah.
And and I felt that way. And there was a dog, and it wanted to lick me. I was pissed. I didn't want it to lick me. And it was hot, and I was sweaty. And I'm like, what am I doing? What am I doing with my life? Like, I had intentions to go to school for acting, and I'm not doing anything but partying. I need to do something. So then I got really inspired, and stayed on the straight and narrow for a couple of weeks, enough to put some audition tapes together for some schools, and I got an acceptance in New York, and ended up moving to New York City, and I moved there the Thursday before 9/11 happened. And that was, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I was courageous in that naivety, I guess, and just saying I'm going to do it. And I showed up and had my orientation for school. And I remember the day of 9/11, I woke up and I had like 37 messages. And I had just moved to New York on that Thursday prior. And I didn't know what the Twin Towers were. I didn't know what World Trade Center. I didn't know. I had no idea what was going on. And I didn't care. I wanted to drink. I saw all these people crying in the street and candles being lit and people talking about family members that might be lost in the falling of the towers. And I didn't care.
Right.
I just cared about wanting to get drunk. And that's exactly what I did. And it wasn't until a year later that it really hit me what I did that night. And that I saw my own selfishness, and I was very confused with it. And it was that same year later in 2002 where I was standing on a corner waiting for the light to turn green and for a walk sign that I realized that I'm not the center of the universe. And I was 20. But it took me a darn while. I realized, like, all of a sudden it was like a vacuum through my head, and it said, "You're not the center of the universe," or something. I don't know. It was just like this resonating knowing that I was not the center of the universe. And I was so sick, I had to go home to Queens and go to bed because I realized that there's people and they have lives. And my curiosity for those people with their own lives had diminished over the years. And I was sick to my stomach because I couldn't believe my selfishness. And I immediately went home and went to bed. But I didn't have any tools to deal with that, nor did I want to share that with anyone. So I continued to put myself in horrible, drunken situations with not so good people. And I remember I had a roommate in college that she's an angel, and she used to chase me in the street in my pajamas because I was looking for alcohol. I mean, I was not in a good run. I was 20. I was just about to turn 21, and I was a full-blown alcoholic. I didn't like to be sober. I didn't want to be sober, and so I had a relationship, and had a broken heart from the relationship. Decided New York City was the problem, and he had been the problem. So I moved back to Minnesota. For a brief moment, was really sad and depressed about how I was so oblivious to what had really happened during 9/11 that I decided I was going to join the Navy. And I had these grandiose ideas of being a search and rescue swimmer, and that was going to be the redemption.
This is wild. The Navy?
What did you say, Omar? What?
This is wild. The Navy?
Yes.
Killing me.
Yeah, but so I thought I could be a search and rescue swimmer. So I started working out with a recruiter. And then my cousin called me. He's like, "Amber, what is going on with you?" And at the time he was playing in the CFL. He was like, "I don't understand. You went to school for acting. You've always wanted to be an actress. Your intention was to move to Los Angeles after you graduated college. You had an agent, you had a manager. I don't understand what is going on with you." And I didn't know either. And I said, "I don't know." And he said, "Go to LA. Don't go into the Navy." And so I did. I went to LA. And I thought I had enough money. I didn't. I show up and don't know anyone except for one person who I went to college with, and I'm laying on his cold floor every night looking for an apartment. And I think I have enough money, but I don't. And I remember being in Santa Monica, looking at a homeless man on a bench, and I remember thinking, I could be him. And all I could think about was I could be him. Like, I could be this guy on this bench and not too long from right now. And I didn't know why I had these strong thoughts of I could be him. Because I had work ethic, didn't I?
Oh,
why was I thinking be him? Yeah.
There's nothing worse than, being out at the same time that there's a homeless man on a bench.
Oh, right.
And having epiphanies.
Yeah, but you could be that. Yeah, and that's something you'd have. I mean, there was tenacity left somewhere, so I called my friend and I decided to ask for help. So I said, I've been all around town and I've been applying to be a waitress and no one's hiring me. And he's like, Amber, if you want to get a job, go to the Rainbow Room on Sunset Boulevard and tell them you want a job and be adamant and don't leave there without one. So, so I go to the Rainbow Room and I worked the parking attendant, and I was like, hey, I'm looking for a job. Do you know who I'd speak to? And he said the manager's name. And I said, okay. So I go in and I talk to that manager, and I say, you look like so-and-so. And he says, yes, I am. And I said, well, I'm here about a job. And he said, you look like an actress. And I was like, well, I am. No, I wasn't. I went to school for acting. I was not an actress. I said, well, I am. And he was like, I don't hire actresses. Sorry. And he went to walk away, and I said, you'd be making a big mistake if you didn't hire me. And then I went to walk away. And then he said, be here tomorrow night at such and such time, and I got a job.
I love it.
So I tell you what, every single night after I knew what I was doing, I was drinking. After the training was over, I was drinking. And there were several times where those girls that I worked with at that club looked out for me, because there were many times where I was waiting on tables blacked out, serving filet mignon and pizza, and having somebody shaking me on the patio saying, Amber, wake up. What the hell is going on? Wake up. You're going to lose your job. And I remember going across the street several times a week and just knowing I'm not gonna be able to make it home tonight, and sleeping in my car and having to pay an additional $20 to sleep in my car, and passing out in Hollywood in a parking garage with the doors open, with the window open because it's too hot. And I put myself in very dangerous situations. A lot of things could have happened much worse than what did. And after a few months of working there and living there, I remember going down to the beach and talking to God for the first time in a very, very long time. And I just said, God, please help me. Something's wrong with me. I don't know what's wrong with me. And I really didn't know. But I knew something was. And then that friend I told you about earlier in the story, who helped me with the Navy, and been known from Montana, he had called me. He was working over on a naval ship during the tsunami, and he had called me from Hawaii and told me all about it and said all of his gall problems. And I said, we'd be just perfect together if we lived in the same state. And he took that and he ran with it. And the next thing I know, I'm flying up to Washington just days later, where he lived, where he was stationed when he got back. And then moving up there from LA, and he was my knight in shining armor, and he was my soon-to-be husband. And every single night that I could, I drank in that home. And he tried to get me to stop. And there were many nights that we had battles, and there were many nights that there was not kindness, there was not love, that was absent from our relationship. And King Alcohol won and trumped everything. And I manipulated to get through to that bottle. You could tell me not to. So I started hiding it because people were starting to tell me not to. And that's all I really cared about. A week later, I'm at a party, and my fiance, now he's my fiance, goes on a boat trip, and this guy comes up to me at a party, and he's been flirting with me all night long, and I'm 10 hours into drinking. By then I should be blacked out, but I remember him coming in for a kiss. And all of a sudden, Omar, it was like a veil was lifted. And I was like, I could see so much selfishness in my behavior. And I could see that I was about to sabotage everything and anything that was good in my life. This man, this possibility of being married, this relationship being good. And I was bad. If I continued, this was not good. And I had this how dare you kind of sickness, like I was just sick. I couldn't believe I was about to kiss this man, and this veil lifted up. And I believe it was God. I believe that it was an awakening at that moment. Yeah. Because my will in that moment was to kiss him. And something else stepped in and woke me up. And I didn't. And I walked away, and I wasn't fully conscious. I grabbed my friend, who was a mother of 3, and I drove her home with one eye closed, one eye open, because I'd been drinking for 10 hours.
Oh, my God.
Somehow I made it. I made it safely to her house and then to my own, because I woke up the next morning, and I was alive. And I looked up at the ceiling, and I instantly had tears because I was in remembrance of what had just happened at 5 o'clock in the morning. And it wasn't actually, I woke up in the afternoon, rather. The afternoon of November 7th in 2005. And I realized what I had done, and I went to the window, and I opened the blinds, and I said, God, please help me, because I can't do this anymore. And it was like something was moving my feet, because the day before recovery meetings, I wasn't thinking about recovery. And I looked up meetings, and I went to this like old apartment building in Whidbey Island, and I knew that there was a meeting that was going to happen in 2 hours, and smoked a pack of cigarettes just waiting for that meeting to start, because I knew if I left, I was never going to come back. And I knew that my solution was in those rooms, even though I had never really entered them myself, except for once when I was 20. And that was in support of somebody else.
Wow.
So I knew that I had to be there, and I was welcomed, and I was loved on, and I was cared about, and I was ODing on the love in those rooms. And they heard me, and I felt understood, and I related to their stories, and I cared about them too. And I couldn't believe they were even caring about me, because I looked like crap, and I felt like crap, and I didn't feel good. The whole feeling of not feeling good was so prominent in my life, constantly not feeling good. But they took me in as their own, and I realized that we all related in those rooms. And I kept coming back, and I got a sponsor, and I worked the steps, and so that's my story before. And now it's a continuation of, after that, it was lots of working the steps and retaliating and defiant behavior, quitting going to recovery meetings, getting back onto the recovery meetings and helping people. I mean, I did everything backwards and wrong and twisted and right, and I didn't do recovery. I still don't do recovery perfectly, but I do ask for help when I need it. And I am open, and I do believe in miracles today. And I see miracles every single day, and I care about people today, whereas before I was so selfish and self-centered and a sabotager of life that I couldn't even see the moment. And I was so stuck in the future or in the past of remorse. And the moment is the only place that I know now to meet God. That's the only moment. That's everything to me.
You are a miracle, Amber.
As are you.
We're all miracles.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, wow,
Absolutely.
Amber. Thank you so much for sharing your experience, strength, and hope with us. That was just a powerful story.
you. I'm so grateful you asked. I'm so grateful you asked me to tell it. Recovery is, I think it's amazing. I think it's absolutely fascinating. I think that every single day, I know every single day I learn something new. Every single day I meet someone. But getting to know other people and actually caring about other people and being of service to others, and my connection with my higher power, which I choose to call an all-loving God, and being open to being a conduit of love, that's what's kept me sober.
Absolutely. So in your recovery, what is the best suggestion you have ever received?
The best suggestion I've ever received: look for miracles. I remember my second sponsor, she said, well, why don't you go down to the beach? You only live a mile away from it. And she's like, when you're having any kind of hardship, and if you can't get a hold of me, and if you're not helping another alcoholic, if you're not of service, then you need to go be meditating. And I was like, I don't know what that even means. And she's like, stop thinking and just sit and look for miracles. And I was like, what do you mean look for miracles? That God is working, she said. And I said, well, what does that look like for you? Or, I probably didn't word it that well. What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean? Explain it to me. And she said that she, in times of distress or worry or, just any time that she didn't feel well, I guess, inside of her soul, she said that she would find time. And I'm like, so? Like, I'm thinking, so what? And she's like, every single time I would find dimes. And I'm still thinking she's a little bit off of her rocker.
She would find what?
And she said she would find dime.
Dime?
Like a dime.
A dime.
Yeah,
she would find she would find an actual dime.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's wild.
10 cents. Yeah. You find 10 cents on the ground. You find a dime, and I just didn't think that was that big of a deal. I'm like, that's a miracle? I guess, okay. I can look for it. I can look for a miracle then, I guess. Like, kind of thought she was nuts. So, but she hadn't steered me wrong yet at all. So, and she was loving me. Like, anything I brought to her, she was hearing it, and she was letting me bring it to her. And so I did what she said. I did what she suggested I do. So I would go down to the beach on Whidbey Island in Washington State, and I would just sit there and look for my miracle. And and she'd say, talk out loud, ask God for miracles too. And so I'd say, God, I'm looking for a miracle, And I didn't know. I mean, I didn't have any idea of my higher power at that time, except for that she obviously loves me to wake me up like that. And then I obviously have a purpose on this planet, and that's not to be wasted every single day. So I'm looking for miracles, and I'm about to leave the beach, and all of a sudden I see that there's 3 birds. And I'm like, wonder if that's a miracle. And then I go back to that same beach on a different day when I'm really stressed out or angry or not getting my way about something in my life at that very opportune moment. So I'm driving down the beach, and I'm sad and I'm mad. And I say, I need a miracle. And I see 3 birds. And now it's the second time I've seen 3 birds. And now I'm starting to get excited, and I've got these goosebumps on my arms. They're not going away.
No.
And I'm starting to believe a little bit. And it's something that's been constant and consistent in my recovery, that when I'm struggling, I see 3 birds. And what's funny is a couple of years ago, I was struggling financially. It was about 3 years ago, I was really struggling, and I started to see dimes.
You started to see the dimes now, huh?
Yes, everywhere. Like dimes in my shoe. Dimes at a dime would be stuck on the bottom of my feet, and I called my old sponsor, and I was like, this is crazy. I'm not even looking for dimes. And she's like, I wasn't looking for them either. They just showed up.
Oh, wow.
So I believe in little things like that, and I've seen bigger miracles than that. I've seen people, and I've seen their lives change, and I've seen people that have been devastated by the disease of alcoholism and drug addiction, and their families change with one little word infused in their body, and that's called hope.
Wow, I love it.
That's the miracle in all of this is seeing that hope in people's eyes and that transformation of people's lives and those loved ones and the ripple effect that it has on the world. It's not just even, yeah.
No question about it. Expect a miracle.
Yeah, absolutely. Walking, talking, breathing miracles.
Absolutely. I love it. So if you could give our listeners only one suggestion, what would it be?
I would say to reach down and find enough curiosity and enough passion and enthusiasm to help someone as much as you would want to be helped if you have recovery. Inside of that, to help those who need help, because maybe if you spend too much time on someone who doesn't want the help, you might miss out on an opportunity to help several people that actually, want it. Did I say that right? I hope I said that right. I don't know.
That whole statement was gold. That was beautiful.
Okay.
Man, I love it. That's what this whole program in a nutshell is all about. It's not for people who need it. There are millions who need it. It's for people who want it and are willing to do the work.
Absolutely.
Man, this is gold. I love it. Oh, Amber, this is awesome.
Hey, thank you.
This has been great. Great.
Been. I'm so grateful. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me on the show. Any more interesting questions? They're fantastic. This show is fun.
Well, the question there just one. I want to know about what you do today. Tell us about your recovery routine today that keeps you clean and sober.
Okay. I have a pretty good routine, which I hated that word years ago, even just a couple of years ago. So my life today looks a little bit different. So I'll just tell you about a regular day, which to me is very exciting. So I wake up and I immediately say my prayer for the day, which is, God, please let me be a conduit of your love today. Please show me how to be that. And then I get a glass of water or a Diet Coke, depending. And I start to write or look at different things that I've written, and I begin my morning meditation by creatively creating art around what I've written on different programs, and then I get ready for work, and I work downtown in Minneapolis, so I'm always on a rush. I'm like rushing all the time because I get so caught up in my creativity. And I get off work, I either go to a meeting or I go speak somewhere, or I go to where I know that there are people who are looking for help. And that is a routine for me. And I'm available, like you said earlier. And constantly working on my book also. So I fit that in the evening hours because it's calm. And but I have this vibrant energy for life, for living today.
So you're writing a book too?
Yeah, Can't Keep a Sober Girl Down.
Of course.
Is the book, and I'm gonna keep it simple. I tried to make it complicated. I wrote it all crazy when I was in New York, and I ended up taking out everything that was complex. And it's really simple, and I'm very excited. I showed the cover. I went up north for vacation over the 4th of July with my cousin, and I showed her the cover of Can't Keep a Sober Girl Down, and she cried. And I realized that I just needed to keep it simple and get it out as quickly as I could. I would love this book to be in a female's arms and be like, this is part of who I am. And this girl gets it. And we get it together. Like, I want that to happen.
I love it. Amber, this has been awesome. This has been absolutely awesome. Thank you so much again. Wow.
Thank you.
We killed it.
Yay. Oh!
So listen.
I'm excited.
I know you should be. I'm excited too. So again, thanks for joining us. And the way we say goodbye here in Costa Rica is pura vida.
Pura vida.
Awesome.
Pura vida. How do you say it? Do you say it really fast?
You don't need to change it. That's it.
Thank you for joining us on the SHAIR Recovery Podcast. To check out the show notes page on this interview or to thank our guests for sharing their story, go to www.theshairpodcast.com. While you're on the website, don't forget to sign up for our free newsletter to stay up to date on the latest news, podcasts, and interviews. Want to be one of our guests and share your story? Then go to our website and click on the Share Your Story button. We share our inspiring recovery stories every Tuesday, so subscribe to our show on iTunes or Stitcher Radio to get your free weekly download. We'll see you then. The opinions shared on this show reflect those of the individual speaker and not of any 12-Step Fellowship as a whole. And though we discuss 12-Step recovery and the impact it had in our lives, we do not promote or endorse any 12-Step Anonymous program.